Hey everybody, it's Chris. If you had the podcast host getting on the show to begin the episode and apologizing for the audio quality on your podcast or bingo cards, check that one off. It turns out I recorded this episode while my MacBook was using its built-in mic and not my super fancy podcast mic, so my audio quality is kind of terrible. Apologies. I think I was able to mostly salvage it, but we'll be better next time. Again, sorry about that. But otherwise, hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for downloading.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 240 of the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospect, and I'm joined as always by our director of scouting. We got to talk about this, who you apparently all think I hate, Ian Cundall. Ian, we need to dispel these rumors. We do not, in fact, hate each other. After the last episode, I made a joke about you no-selling my episode opening joke. And multiple people replied with I think you two don't like each other.
Well, it wasn't a good joke, so why would I give it attention?
Oh, right. No, I mean, it's not about the joke anymore. I mean, you hate.
No, I know, but I'm just trying to answer the people. If
but
someone tells
it's
a bad
not because of that. It's because they just think we don't like each other.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Which I mean, yeah,
I don't not like you, but I might not like. Nah, just kidding.
These are just horrible rumors.
Yeah,
hurtful things.
I don't respond to rumors. That's what I've learned.
You're tired of rumors starting. You're sick of being followed.
Well, I think I've just
get that reference.
No. I think I've just been hurt by all the rumors about the lockout ending and it not. Yeah. So I think that I just don't know who to trust these days. So
it's hard. It's hard as we're in month. Let's see, they locked them out December 2nd. So January, February, March is 3 months of lockout.
Kind of wish we had those 43 days back, eh?
Would be nice. At any rate, so we're going to have an update on the lockout this episode. We're going to talk about some of the transactions that happened. We're going to talk about your emails. Again, send them in a podcast at SoxProspects.com because we always want to talk about what you want to hear about, especially when there's no Major League Baseball to talk about. But hey, you know what, Ian? This is the last episode of the podcast before the official opening of minor league spring training. So there is hope, folks. There is going to be.
There will be, and this is, I think, a common misconception. There will be baseball starting in April. There's baseball going on right now, actually, even with the college baseball and the high school. But
that's true. Yep.
Minor league opening day is, I think, March 6th, I want to say. Yes. March 6th. Minor league camp opens on March 6th, and opening day of the minor league season, I believe, is April 6th or 5th. 5th.
That's the Blue Sox open on the 5th, and I think the other teams.
The other ones are
the
7th
and 8th.
It's a couple days later.
Because AAA has more game, or they have a longer season this year.
Yeah,
because they want them to be playing as the tax,
which is smart. That's what it should be.
Perfect sense.
But yeah, so there will be minor league baseball. Just certain players won't be able to participate, which we'll get into a little later, because there's definitely been some confusion, at least on my timeline, and from people who are, asking questions to me about what's going on with that. So we'll touch on how the Red Sox are impacted by that, because I think it's a lot. It has a much bigger impact on them than I think it does some other teams, given the Red Sox 40-man construction right now.
Mm-hmm. And before we get into that, though, we first want to mention, if you want to support the podcast, you can do that a couple of ways. First, rate and review us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever it is that you listen to the show. You can tell a friend. Got a friend who likes the Red Sox. Got a parent, sibling, cousin, distant cousin 4 times removed, someone you just talked to on Twitter or Facebook, internet message board buddy, the person you swiped. Is it right or left on Tinder? I've never been on Tinder, so whichever way you swipe. I've never been
on Tinder, so I don't know either.
Whichever way you swipe because you like the person, tell them about the SoxProspects.com podcast. Spread the word. It's that time of year again, so it's time to get back into baseball mode. And I'm sure people are out there looking. And of course, you can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. That's where you can pledge a certain amount per episode, get some neat perks, and including potentially getting a shout out on the show at the $5 level, which we'll name all of those folks at the end of the episode. So you can support us one of those two ways. And for those of you who already have, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Now, depressing stuff. Hey, fun, depressing stuff. Today, we're recording this on Thursday, March 3rd. And as of Tuesday, March 1st, the extension of the arbitrary deadline set by the owners of Major League Baseball, the lockout is still going, and the first two series of the season, the first week of the season, has been canceled. So we are officially now losing Major League games because of the lockout. And Ian, it's no bueno. It's no good. We don't like it. I keep going back to when did we first start saying this? That this was going to happen? I mean, I don't mean this to say I told you so. It's to say
I feel like we've been consistent about the whole offseason.
Before that, even I think even during last season we were talking about how this was coming. I don't say that to say I told you so. I have to admit I got suckered in a little bit. So the two sides met all of last week through this past Tuesday, and Monday night, when I happened to be up anyway because of work, which was pretty horrible. It seemed like the two sides may have been getting close to a deal with that arbitrary deadline in the background. They met until 3 a.m. I beat them by an hour. I was up for another hour continuing to work. It was pretty tremendous, but it seemed like they were close. It seemed like they were making progress on things. I got hopeful, and insert that meme of Hawkeye from Endgame here of, don't do that, don't give me hope. But I think if you looked closer, it was clear they weren't close, because the issues they had left to talk about were the CBT, were pre-arb minimum salaries, and pre-arb bonus pools.
It was literally like the three biggest things.
And I always keep forgetting the third one. Revenue sharing, was it even?
No, it was the CBT, pre-arb bonus pool, and minimum salary.
Minimum salary. Okay, right. So those three things. And those were where literally and figuratively the money was.
Well, and this is the thing. It's like they are far apart in those regards. But if you break it down like per team, it's something like they're like $5 million per year off or something like along those lines.
Yeah, but for value of the CBT,
the CBT is hard, but
$700 million or something, I think.
Yeah, no, I just mean it in terms. Well, that's assuming every team spends up to that point, which none of them.
Well, no, but that's factoring in that's CBT, that's minimum salary, that's pre-arb bonus pool.
Well, no, because the pre-arb bonus pool they were off. It was like 85 million versus 20 or something.
Yeah, but
so
per
was
year.
Like, right. No, I'm just talking about per year though. That's like 60 million. The minimum salary was like 50K or something. It was like 675.
Yeah, but then you got to multiply that by the number of players.
Right. But it wasn't like a significant amount in the grand scheme of things for baseball accounting per team. But like when you look at it as a whole number, it's definitely a lot.
But it's like, I mean, even if you look at the CBT, I mean, I think the owner's final offer was like 220 million in 2022, going up to 230 million in year 5.
Yeah, but it was 220 for like 3 years.
Yeah,
like
I mean, but I think they eventually made it like 220, 222, 224, 228, 230 or something. Which like, or 226 and then 230, which like, that's not going up enough. That's not even outpacing inflation.
It's like, not growing at the rate that the revenues are, even after like a couple of bad years.
I mean, the reporting wasn't it if the CBT had gone up with the rate of revenues going up in MLB, the CBT this year would have been like 300 million.
Yeah.
Or something.
It's a lot. It would have been a lot higher than even the players were asking for.
And it makes me wonder a little bit, Ian, why the players are so steadfast. I mean, I think I know part of why the players are so steadfastly against tying. I mean, it would mean a salary cap and floor like the NFL has.
Yeah.
But tying it to revenues. And I mean, I think the reason is that, I mean, the other reporting I heard is that the second that a deal is announced eventually, like the next week, they're going to start announcing streaming deals with like HBO or so.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Like they're already in place. They're just waiting to announce them so they don't have to account for them in the CBT.
Yeah.
Which that's why the players don't trust the owners.
Well, and
the other thing, or go ahead. I've been talking for a while.
No, I was just gonna say, and like the thing that I think is just frustrating to me is I don't think all the owner, and I'm pretty confident in saying this, not all the owners are on the same page in this regard. Like this thing as being held up by certain teams that just don't want to spend. And I think that's what bothers me about the whole thing is that rather than the solution to me is pretty simple. There are a lot of rich people who would love to own a baseball team who would happily be willing to spend. And if like those owners don't want to spend, I don't understand why baseball just basically capitulates to them and lets them be the one decision makers, because obviously they outnumber the big market teams. When if they just went out, they could find people to replace them. Like that wouldn't be hard. There's enough rich people in the world who would want to own a team who would be willing to spend more for like certain teams. And like, it's just, I wonder how like in the internal politics of it, we'll never know, but I would be fascinated to know like what the Dodgers or the Mets or the Red Sox think about the fact that like teams like the Orioles, the Rockies, and the Pirates are controlling these whole negotiations basically.
And I mean, it's, I think it got reported that 4 of the 30 owners voted against the proposal they made. That was like the best and final offer on Tuesday.
So they voted against their best and final offer.
Well, the one problem is, that's the headline I saw. It didn't make it clear if they thought it was too low or too high.
That's what I'm wondering.
So they're not, but it speaks to the point that they're not all on the same page.
No. And that's the thing that's hard is like these owners that don't spend, that's their choice. Like,
yeah.
Like, and this is, I think the thing the players have realized is like the teams that spend are going to spend regardless of what the number is. The other teams are not going to spend regardless of what the number is.
Yeah.
The problem is that the teams that aren't going to spend regardless of the number outnumber the teams that are going to spend.
Well, there were 5 teams that were even within shouting distance of the CBT last year.
Yeah. I think Max Scherzer I want to say it was Scherzer said it in that press conference. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with the system when the Padres have a higher like payroll than the Yankees. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I understand. And I actually, I somewhat disagree in the sense that if the Padres want to spend, they should be able to. Like, no, I don't think teams should be criticized like for spending. But I get his point is that like the Yankees are the biggest team in baseball, arguably them probably
the marquee
Dodgers
franchise.
They should be the highest spending team, and even they were reining in their spending because of the restrictions created under the old CBA from 2016 or wherever the last one was.
Yep.
So I just think that the whole thing, and I hate it to be a cynic, but like, and there's people who back me up on this. When everything was coming out that night, I sent like a message to a few people and was basically just like, I would be very cautious here based on who's reporting it, because this has it written all over to me. Owners leaking, the talks are getting close, so that when tomorrow the players come back and say they're not close, the players get blamed. And it goes back to what we talked about in the last episode where this is all a PR thing. All the leaks you're reading are PR plays, and it's both sides are doing it. The players are definitely getting better. The players are definitely getting better at it too. They've definitely improved from when we talked last time, but both sides are using strategic leaks to further their, their negotiation tactics or their like the idea they're trying to get across. And that's why you need to be very careful with who it's coming from. And I'll say it's pretty obvious figuring out where people are getting their information based on who it is and what they're saying.
Oh yeah.
And that'll give you some insight into kind of what the goal is with what they're saying, because it's pretty clear the owners are trying to paint the players out to be the bad guys who are ruining baseball. And I mean, and again, I go back to it. If you look at Twitter replies, there are a lot of people who agree with them that, the players should be they're playing a kid's game. They should work for free, all that, stuff that is just ridiculous.
Which, by the way, I saw a great point on that today about like, who anyone would go play Major League Baseball for any amount of money. Major League Baseball, if you took the top 1,200 Major League Baseball players, which is the 40-man rosters of each team, right, and removed them from baseball all at once, Major League Baseball immediately fails. Immediately, right? Like it's the level of talent goes down drastically. It's a much less interesting product, et cetera. Right? Do we agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Take the 30 owners and replace them with 30 other rich guys, and you don't miss a beat.
Well, that was the point I was trying to make is that it is.
That's what made me think of that tweet.
It's silly to me that the owners, like, rather than Major League Baseball being like, okay, you don't want to spend, like, we will replace you with someone who will.
Yep.
It's like, we'll capitulate to you and make sure the CBA, it allows you to still run like a skeleton operation and gain obscene revenue just because of the TV deals. Like, because that's what it is. That's what those teams make their bank off, is revenue sharing in the TV deals. And it's like, I don't understand why the big market owners are okay subsidizing those teams when they know there are other people who could come in and would spend like them, and then they would get taken out of revenue sharing. That's what I don't understand. Like,
you know what I just thought of this. You know what Major League Baseball is, to some degree? It's a book club in which 2/3 of the people who show up didn't read the book, and the other third of the people there don't have the balls to kick them out. That's what Major League Baseball is.
yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, it would be in the interest of the teams that are willing to spend a lot to have other owners who would be willing to spend, because then, the money would be divided differently, etc. But for whatever reason, they choose to just let it slide. And I'm wondering if the longer this goes on, maybe we'll see some fight back from them or something. I don't know.
You know what it is? It's there's no more George Steinbrenner. There's no Jerry Jones. Like, Jerry Jones would never go for this crap. Are you kidding me? Like, he'd whip them all. Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, and I'm sure I'm thinking of a couple of the other NFL owners would never. I mean, granted, they've already broken basically the NFL union. So that is what it is. But yeah, it's not great. You had made a point earlier that we were going to talk about, Ian, with the important date potentially coming up, is that a lot of I don't know, is it everyone or just some of the teams that have deals with regional sports networks?
It's unclear to me. I think it varies from team to team. It
might vary, but I heard, I saw the same report you did, that after missing 25 games is when the teams start losing money, or start having to give money back to the RSNs. So that's a potential pain point for the owners to drive them back to the table. And we should mention, I guess, representatives from both sides met today to discuss when they're going to reconvene. Again,
there were no offers made or anything.
No offers made, but they were discussing for 90 minutes apparently, which, I mean, I guess I've been on 90-minute calls when not much has been discussed, but yeah, so that was kind of interesting.
I think, like, the longer it goes on, the worse both sides. The longer, like,
that's the point I was about to get to.
Before they next, it needs to be soon. Otherwise, it's going to just not look good for either side, frankly.
Well, it's not going to look good. I mean, I made the point on a radio hit this morning that, like, and I think I've talked about this on the show, that Major League Baseball's competition isn't just the NBA and the NFL and the NHL and whatever other sport you want to pick. MLB's competition is Fortnite. MLB's competition is Netflix. Like, the longer they're not an option, the more out of people's heads they are. I'm not as worried about, like, Johnny Twitter egg who's like, I'm never going to watch baseball again because they're all greedy. Like, I think that kind of thing is going to be in the minority. What I'm more worried about is the longer they're gone, the further they are from mine, and people are like, whatever, baseball. That's what I'm worried about. The diehard baseball fan isn't going to leave because of the strike. And people who leave are going to come back the next time there's a Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa home run chase type thing happening in baseball. You know what I mean? When some exciting player comes along to ignite the imagination, or their team is making a run in the playoffs and it's going to draw them in. That's how these things work. It's an entertainment product. You know, people get HBO when Game of Thrones is a cultural phenomenon. And then, you know, if Game of Thrones gets bad, they're kind of like, whatever, or something, you know, just to give kind of a bad example. But yeah, that's what I'm worried about with that. The other thing, Ian, as now that we're starting to lose games, that makes things harder, is now you have the issues of service time and back pay. That players,
and I think the union has made it very clear, and I think they said it at their press conference, that they want to be paid for 162 games, and I assume they will want service time for 162 games.
Oh, for sure.
You better believe the owners are not going to want to do either of those things. So,
yeah. I mean, service time you could maybe prorate, like you did during the COVID. Here's the thing too, is that I think
players won't want that though. Like, they're going to be like, no, like,
what's wrong?
Why would they want to?
You still get 162 games, like you just prorate it during the COVID year.
I guess, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking. No, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess.
Because what you could do otherwise is, you could give the guys who had been on the 40 service time, but like
I was just
You
going
don't
to say
get
you give
service
them the
time for
6.
being on the 40.
I thought they were just going to say like give them the 6 games or whatever. But
No,
yeah, that
no, no,
wouldn't
no.
work.
I think
That wouldn't work though.
what you do is if you
they
play
can't.
140 games, you do 140. Like how you got 2.7.
Yeah, you make it
for
out
every
of like
day in
140 of 150 or whatever versus
Right.
is X out of
So you prorate
162.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Or 180 or whatever.
prorate the service time. That's easy enough to do. The big issue is going to be back pay. Because the thing is, like you mentioned, if the players don't get service time for time missed, it was going to be very easy for like who is it that's going to wind up getting an extra year of
The two
control?
big ones are Ohtani and Pete Alonso. It's Ohtani's the big one, and then Pete Alonso also are the two the two names that the big names that would lose a year of service time with. I don't think it's very much. I think it's like a couple weeks of like regular season games.
Well, because those are two guys who broke camp with the major league club, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
so that's why they're the only guys that didn't have their service time manipulated. Go figure. Manipulated with the lockout.
Oh, exactly. And the thing, and I will say, like some of the reported changes, and this is kind of just going back a little bit, like some of the reported changes to like reduce like service time manipulation. Some of them do seem like it seems like they kind of agreed on like the draft lottery and like, or they came to like not agreed necessarily, but they came to a point that both sides were accepted, like that was acceptable for both sides with regards to like the draft lottery and a few other things. But yeah, like at the end of the day, it's gonna like the last thing they needed was more controversial topics, and here we are.
Yeah.
And like,
well, one more controversial topic, Ian, is the fact that we're going to not have some minor leaguers around, which is
this is
a big deal
problem.
because of the fact that minor league camp opens this weekend.
I think this is something that people like. I don't think is being focused on enough. The impact on development this is going to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who like follow us on Twitter or who listen to this podcast, they get it. But I agree with you that on the grander scheme of things, people don't really realize any player on the 40-man roster is locked out.
Yeah.
And I like saw someone like suggest, might have been in our forum, like, oh, can't they just agree to like let the minor leaguers go? No, like they're in the union. Like
no.
They're not going to make an exception
would never
for guys
allow
from the
this.
union. Oh, the union wouldn't allow it and the owners don't want it either.
No.
You know? But yeah, I mean, there's a 26-man MLB roster and there's up to 14 guys that are not on the major league roster that are on the 40-man that aren't going to be in minor league camp when it starts this weekend.
No.
And for the Red Sox, that's problematic because they have some key prospects who are on the 40-man roster who are not going to be in camp. I mean, lucky for them, the big three of Tristan Casas, Marcelo Meyer, and Nick York none of them are on the 40-man, obviously. Maybe not as obvious with Casas, but Casas is not on the 40, so that's good.
Yeah.
But after that, you've got a bunch of guys. And I think what we were going to do is go down the list and from on a scale of 1 to 10, how much we think that missing. I mean, part of it depends on how much time, but like, given the fact they're already going to miss the start of training camp, spring training, like,
I mean, because
you
think about it, like these guys are going to need at least probably 3 weeks to a month to ramp. Position players maybe a little less time, but I would say 3 weeks to a month to ramp up once an agreement is made. So like, I know they're throwing on their own. They might be playing in like simulated games. The PA has set up like some sort of spring training for them, but like, I don't see how that would work with the minor leaguers because like, I don't want Jay Groom going in and facing like Pete Alonso in a game. Like that's a terrible idea. Or like Jeter Downs facing like Max Scherzer. Yeah, that's going to end well. Like,
well, but if you have minor leaguers on the 40-man who are there, you could have those guys face each other.
I mean, you could have them face each other.
Because the thing that I was about to mention is Matt Barnes, and they should do more of this. This is genius. Is Matt Barnes live streamed a workout from Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers?
Oh yeah, that was great. That was hilarious to watch.
He had Sale, Nick Pivetta,
Groom,
Winkowski, and I think that was it.
Yeah,
throwing to a bunch of FGCU hitters, which like that's cool if you're a FGCU player.
Yeah, baseball player. Yeah,
to get to face like Chris Sale, and it looked like Chris Sale facing FGCU hitters. By the way, it was hilarious. But I mean, that was cool. So like those guys are at least working out. And actually Groom, I should say, looked physically pretty good because that's always a thing you have to watch with him.
Yeah, he did. He did look he looked in.
He'll never be small.
No, he's never gonna be small. I mean, 6'6" also, but
that's
he definitely he looked in better shape than he did at the end of last season. I'll say that.
Yep, I think that's fair.
But like I don't like there are certain guys, and we'll get into it that they're gonna be 3 weeks to a month behind. And for some of them, that's like, this is the year they could have, broke through to the big leagues or whatever. Or like Jaren Durant's trying to get back up to the big leagues. Like all those guys are going to be set back several weeks, potentially more. And the longer this goes, the further they get set back. And it's a really bad situation for them.
And they're going to come back in and face players who've been playing since the start of the season.
Exactly. Like they're, Jeter Downs going to report to AAA well behind, all these pitchers who have been playing since, some teams have already started their mini camps. Like, it's just going to be, it's a bad situation. I do wonder this though. So do those players who have never played in the big leagues, but are on the 40 get that stipend that is being paid out?
That's a good question.
Because if they do, they're going to make more money off that than they've like ever made on a minor league season, which is disgusting, but they're going to make like, cause I think it's like $15K a month or something.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Like that's way more than they make for a minor league salary an entire year.
Yeah.
If they're not like a minor league free agent. So
it wouldn't surprise me if it was like tiered.
That's why I was wondering if you noticed, because I was curious. If,
I hadn't seen it.
Is Jay Groom getting the same thing as Chris Sale?
That's a good point. And he shouldn't probably, right? Like
I don't know. But if they're all in the union and they're paying union dues, like they should, they all are technically like if they all pay the same union dues, they should be entitled to the same thing. But I don't know if union dues are like prorated by your salary or how it works. So
that's true. That's a good questions that I don't know the answer to.
So,
but
should we move on to the players?
Yeah, let's move on. Let's start in Portland to kind of start low. Let's start with Hudson Potts, a guy who, I'm going to be frank, I think he's probably getting DFA'd.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I
when
thought
they come back.
Yeah, like if the Red Sox are going to make moves when they eventually return, and he's among the first names on the list.
It makes me wonder if before the lockout, the Red Sox should have designated guys for assignment to get them off so that they could report to camp. Obviously, this is with the benefit of hindsight. And they definitely,
I'm assuming they probably thought a deal could be reached, so they didn't need to do that.
And also, it's just like, why risk losing a guy for this marginal gain? I don't know. But anyway, Potts, and I would probably throw he needs the at-bats because he had a rough season last year after starting it late with an injury. A 3?
Yeah. Well, were you going out of 5 or 10?
10.
Oh, yeah.
Would you go higher? I would go higher than 3 potentially, but
I would say like a 5, but it's more like, I don't think he's that good of a prospect. So it's like,
that's why I'm saying it's we'll see.
He definitely needs the at-bats, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I'm not sure that much is going to change.
Our projection right now, I've got him on the bench in Portland.
Yeah.
I don't have him because he's on the same roster as Christian Koss, David Hamilton, and Brandon Howlett, who are going to get at bats, and Cameron Cannon, who I would have all 4 of those guys are getting at bats ahead of him at this point.
Yeah. So, that's a tough one for him.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Jason Rosario.
It's the same thing. I don't think he's that good.
Yeah. So. 3 to 5 or something.
Yeah. I think the next one's the interesting.
The 2 pitchers are the interesting one on the ones on the Portland roster is Jay Groom and Brian Baio. So let's start with Groom.
9, 8.
I think it's that high.
Oh yeah. He needs innings.
He got through a year last year.
He got through a healthy year.
And he pitched
100 innings or 96,
106. Oh, sorry, 96, 97.
Like he needs to get 120, 130 innings this year. And if he starts the season a month late, he's not going to be able to do that. But still, I don't think he's getting that many, even if he goes to Arizona. Because I guess he did miss considerable time last year after the birth of his child, right? He missed a month or something.
3 months. Or 3 weeks. Sorry.
3 weeks. No, let's just say 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
But
and he probably would have been ramped down anyway.
I would say probably an 8. 8. I'd say 8.
7 or an 8 sounds right. 7 or an 8 sounds right.
He definitely needs the reps. He needs game reps. And this was his, he was good in Portland last year. And this was his chance to kind of build off that and see is he one of the better pitching prospects in the system? Or is he just kind of the potential back end starter with kind of degraded stuff that he's had since he came back from injury? It's going to be interesting to see where his stuff is. And I will say one thing with pitchers is missing April in Portland is not the end of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Because pitching in Portland in April is awful. It's 25 degrees. Guys have no command. They have no feel for where the ball is going. They have no feel for a breaking ball. It's just not ideal pitching conditions for the most part. Obviously there are those days where it's beautiful, but it's pretty cold there. So if it was somewhere other than Portland, I might be more concerned, but if they come back and he's throwing an extended, and like if we get into May, then I'll start like it's obviously higher. But like I think we should just operate under the like impression that these guys will be able to start playing like April 1st, let's say.
These guys being
The minor
like spring
leaguers.
training.
Yeah, their spring training will start April 1st.
They'll all go to Major League camp, which, by the way, interesting question. What happens to the guys who had NRIs?
I was actually wondering that too.
Do you pull them out of Worcester? Like
that's what I don't. It logistically, it's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah,
because you can't. The thing is, if you pull them out of Worcester, so you're just gonna sign more guys, but you're gonna run up against the 180 limit, so you can't do that.
Right.
Like it's.
I mean, they would have to temporarily.
They'd have to remove the limit or something. But yeah. So I think that. Sorry, just going back, like Portland, it's not the end of the world because I think it's less of an issue because it's Portland, like the weather. But at the same time, I'm still concerned just in general about him missing time.
Yeah. Another guy who threw apparently about the same number of innings last year, I didn't realize, was Brian Baio, although he has a year in which he threw 117 innings before that. So
yeah,
Baio, I probably put it this way, it certainly decreases that chance that he like goes into the bullpen and he's in the majors by the end of the
that's
year.
the biggest thing for me is that I think it kind of unless this is sorted pretty soon, his chances of making his big league debut kind of go out the window because
I throw a 5 on him.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, if you look at it from the sense that for him, like he might not get his big league debut, it's obviously a big deal. But I would say, yeah, I don't think it's as much as Groom, but at the same time, I do think it slows the kind of roll of maybe we were looking at, August, September 2022 to now we're looking at maybe May or June of 2023 for when he gets up.
Right. Moving up to Worcester, let's stay with the rotation. We've got 3 rotation guys there in Connor Siebold, Cutter Crawford, and Josh Winkowski. I think Siebold is the one I worry about most of that trio, Ian.
Agree. I would agree.
He needs the innings to work out whatever the heck was going on with him last year. So with him, I'd probably throw that, see if he's healthy. Like a 6 on it, maybe even a 7.
I would go higher. I would go like 7.
Yeah, probably
7 or 8. Because for me, like this is the hardest part for them. Is this is the group that is supposed to be able to provide MLB starting depth, and they're all going to be well behind. And so they're going to go into the season with Eovaldi, Sale, Hill, Pivetta, Waka, we assume. But then Whitlock, I don't know if you can stretch out Whitlock now in a compressed spring training.
Well, they told him, apparently, I saw this for the first time the other day, that before the lockout, they did tell him to come to camp prepared to stretch out.
Okay, fair. But still, it's a lot easier to stretch him out when camp starts, February 18th and goes through in a 6-week camp versus a 3-week, in my opinion.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that because he's getting stretched out the same amount that everybody else is. Right now,
season. I guess as long as he knows,
he knows. It's not like he's coming in thinking he's going to be a 1-inning reliever, and they're like, "Hey, actually, just kidding."
Yeah,
you're throwing 5.
But I do think this. I mean, he's not one of the guys we're talking about. I do think this slightly lessens the chances he opens in the rotation, though. And just
I think what they have right now is they have 7 guys who can provide length.
Yeah,
and I think it's kind of funny. Just skipping ahead really quick to Edward Bizzardo and Phillips Valdez. I'm going to give both of them a 1 in how they're affected by this. If anything, it might be negative numbers because I have a feeling coming out of the lockout so that we can get back to playing games quicker. They're going to open the year with an expanded roster potentially.
It'll be like 28 again.
And if it is, guess who the beneficiaries are is guys like Edward Bizzardo and Phillips Valdez who wind up in the majors.
Yeah.
So that's
but I would say I think Siebold of this group is the most. The reason I'm not as I know Crawford does need to make up innings also because he obviously missed, that full season and plus with TJ, but I don't think Crawford's a starter long term. So that's why it's not as much of a big deal for me with him. And similarly with Winkowski, I'm not sold he's a starter either. So I don't think of this trio, I think it impacts him the least.
Winkowski.
Yeah. But so I would say that Siebold is the big one for me, and
I'd probably go a 7 on Siebold, Crawford a 4, Winkowski a 4,
3 or 4,
maybe,
yeah. The big ones for me, from the pitching side, because I think we touched on the relievers, we don't need to talk about them really.
Yeah, I give them both 1s.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a very big deal. I think I would rank it in order. It's it's Groom and Siebold, and then Baio, and then after it's Groom and Siebold at the top, Baio tier 2, and then everyone else is tier 3 in terms of how it impacts them.
Yeah. offensive side.
Mhm.
Both of the catchers, Connor Wong and Ronaldo Hernandez, I think different situation. Well, maybe not different situations because they're both guys who could use reps for different reasons.
Yeah.
I think it might affect Hernandez a little more as a guy who
agree.
needs catching reps.
I would
Whereas
agree.
Wong, I think
You can't simulate catching in a game
No.
calling, like all that stuff. And the stuff he needs work with is stuff that he would be getting specific instruction from like Chad Epperson and the other catcher. I don't think he's actually,
he's the manager in
catching
Portland now.
I just caught myself on that, but
You did good work.
whoever the new catching instructor is,
Yep.
Things like that, he isn't able to get that, one-on-one work or, group work setting, working on those defensive drills with them. So that impacts him because his biggest thing is the defense, like, and obviously like the approach and all that stuff. But just if he can't play catcher like defensively at an adequate level, then it doesn't matter what his bat is. So that's like, I think that's a bigger deal for me than Wong, who I think Wong's like fine. I don't think he's got a very high ceiling.
Right. I think
but
that's
like,
fair.
Yeah.
He's he's maybe a backup. And the stuff he has
he's
to work
probably
on,
an up and down.
offensive.
He's probably like a third, fourth catcher on a 40-man roster, like up and down guy.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Does the job if you need him. Whereas Hernandez, like I think Hernandez could be like a backup catcher, a bat first backup at the MLB level potentially, but he's got a higher ceiling than Wong in my opinion. It's just the defense. We don't know where it's going to go, and he's missing out on that.
Much
yeah.
Lower
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Wong is going to play in the big league. Well, he already has, I guess, but like
yeah. Has he played? He's been up. I don't think has he played?
I think he played. I think he got a couple. Yeah, he got 6 games, 13 at bats.
My brain is just destroyed. Don't mind me.
Over 300 on those 13 at bats.
Numbers. I'd probably go 6 on Hernandez.
6 and 4 was what I was going to go.
4 on Wong. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Middle infield, Jonathan Aruz and Jeter Downs. And Jeter Downs might be my 9.
Yeah, this is bad. It's not great for him.
Good.
I don't want him rushing to get ready either. Because like we saw, he kind of had he was good in the AFL to start, then tailed off at the end of the AFL. We obviously know how his season was horrible and that it ended okay. He had a couple good weeks at the end. He needs a good year. And I don't know if like we're not gonna know did he like work on something with this? Was there some sort of swing mechanic change like that he needs to work on in game, kind of like what we saw Jaren Durant? Like there's a lot of question marks with him at the plate right now, and we're not gonna get answers now for a delayed amount of time, which is obviously a concern.
Jonathan Aruz, 2.
I mean, yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, he I think everyone kind of knows what he is. Fine player, great person, depth guy to have on your team. Maybe he's on the opening day roster. You could benefit in that regard. If they expand rosters, he might be someone who goes up there as the extra,
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because they, especially depending on what they acquire, because we have them signing.
It's a big hindrance on his development because he kind of is what he is.
Yeah, we have them signing a couple of middle infielders potentially, or acquiring. I guess is the better.
I mean, there's still work to be done.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, if they don't get the backup middle infielder, like he could be the guy for a month.
Yeah.
Because he's fungible, and kind of saving one of the bigger ones for last, and Jaren Durant. And I want to hear what you think on this one.
I think it's a big deal for him.
Do you?
Because I don't know what he did with his swing in the offseason. No one does. Like for all we know, he could have tweaked it again. Defensively, it's hard to simulate the game reps that you get from tracking and the instruction he needs defensively and stuff is just all. He needs just more reps in center field. And he also needs reps at the plate, work on his contact rate, work on his contact ability, work on his approach. Like it's a lot of things that I think he needs game reps for, and him missing time. I think it's going to impact him and whether they're, it might, might they be more inclined to go out and get another outfielder because they're not comfortable with him, like potentially having to fill his shoes if someone gets hurt, something like that.
Devil's advocate. Before the 2020 season, he went out on his own and remade his swing in the first place.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
During the, I guess that would have been 2020 as well, but the break between minor league spring training and coming back to like the alt site, he probably did the best job or among the best jobs out of anyone of staying in shape, staying ready, working on his own. If he's continuing to do that,
I'm not worried about any of that.
No,
I'm just worried
of people who may be likely to be able to work out on their own and stay ready to go for when they come back and not miss a beat. Chances are that he could do that. I
agree with that.
agree with
I
the
just think
points
it's.
made. I'm just saying
I just think that the time is what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about him ramping up or being ready to go. It's just if he ends up missing like a month of regular season games, that's the part that would suck for me for him.
I guess it's just that. I mean, who's he going to be facing to? Is he going to be facing AAA pitching that's now way ahead of him?
Yeah, that's like the concern for me.
That's a concern. Yeah. So number, give me a number. You give me your number first. I think you've skipped the number on some guys.
6, 5.
6 on him.
Yeah.
Maybe go 5 myself. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll see how this works out. I'm very interested. Look, the last time MLB had a labor stoppage like this, when's the last time they had a labor stoppage that affected spring training? Because 94.
Well, no, the answer is
it was 95. That's right.
No, it's the COVID year.
Well, I'm just saying a work stoppage though, because COVID.
But that was because remember they couldn't come to an agreement on the shortened CBA for the season.
I guess. But I'm saying that everybody came back there wasn't like a group of players back and a group of players who weren't. But I think that was 95. I think because
I don't know. That was
there was a strike. It went through the entire rest of the season, and at the beginning of the next season, that's when MLB was using scabs. Because that's why guys like Kevin Millar and Brendan Donnelly.
I was not
a history lesson, young man.
I was not at the age to comprehend what was
going on. But that's why you would get baseball games and like.
That's why Kevin Millar wasn't in like MLB the show or not MLB the show, MVP baseball. MVP baseball.
But so that's
because he wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed in the players union.
Exactly. Yeah. Brendan Donnelly, future NESN broadcaster Kevin Millar.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah, so the report is that the new booth is going to have obviously Dave O'Brien and Eck, as well as Kevin Millar,
Tony Maz, right?
Tony Maz, and who the hell was the third one? Kevin Uke.
I do remember. I remember now once you said it.
Yep. So that'll be
interesting to see how that works. Yeah,
and in many ways for different reasons. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't last too long, man. I don't like it. No, sir. I don't like it. Moving along, Ian, let's move on to baseball stuff. Transactions, just a few since our last episode. The Red Sox signed Tyler Danish to a minor league contract with a non-roster invitation to spring training. Ian, stop me if you heard this one. He's young for being a minor league free agent. Oh no, he's not who I'm thinking of. I was going to say not great command, but he's actually Danish is interesting in the fact that he can do both relieve and potentially give you length. He had, I think, 11 appearances last year of 3 innings out of his 29, including 3 starts. So he threw 60 innings, but in only 29 appearances. Pretty good numbers, honestly. He was hittable, but only 15 walks to 67 strikeouts. It looked like he might have gotten BABIP'd a little bit. Only threw another 10 innings in Double-A in 3 appearances, 12 Ks to no walks. So clearly didn't belong in Double-A. But a guy with MLB experience, good depth, and I think he's a guy, Ian, who at the start of the year probably moves into the rotation to start the year.
Yeah, he kind of seems as like a Daniel Gossett replacement, who I think signed with Minnesota or someone like.
Yeah, he's out of Minnesota. I mean,
someone who can pitch in the rotation, he can pitch out of the bullpen. He's like a priority minor league free agent. Because he's a high pedigree. I think he was a former first round pick or second round pick by the White Sox back in the day.
Second round pick in 13.
He was once like a pretty highly regarded prospect. I'm pretty sure like borderline top 100. And I mean, we'll see kind of what happens with him, how they use him going forward.
Yep. And also one big loss on the transactions ledger was the signing of Jose Adames with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know, Ian, you really liked what you saw out of Adames last year.
I'm not surprised the Dodgers signed him. I think he's a solid pitcher who has a chance to pitch in the big leagues. And I would not be surprised at all if he made it with the Dodgers, because that's what they do. I mean, they're very good at identifying these guys and turning them into big leaguers. So
yep.
Wish the Red Sox been able to bring him back, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. One more transaction to mention, and I really don't want to go terribly deep into this, but this was obviously kind of a recent phenomenon on Twitter. If you're on baseball Twitter, the Red Sox released former 3rd round pick, I think it was, Ian, Brett Netzer. Brett Netzer was like I said, he was the 3rd round pick in 2017 out of UNC Charlotte. Was in the system from 2017 through basically 2019, and then COVID happened. Really had clearly kind of plateaued in Portland in 2019 to the extent that he was a second base only guy who they were starting to get some time in left field. Just, wasn't quite clear what his path to the majors was. Spent last year on the restricted list. We were told that he spent time, that he had decided to step away from baseball. And then was it over the weekend that he just suddenly, after not being on social media for a year, went off on just a string of racist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic social media posts. It's not clear to me what's going on there. The Red Sox immediately released him, made comments about Chaim Bloom on there. It's not clear what's happening there, and I don't want to speculate. I hope if he needs help, he gets it. But just a really bizarre end to the baseball career of someone who, it was weird because one of his Instagram stories said, "Release me." Like he's going to get picked up by another team after that. It was just very strange. Not really a whole lot else to say after the way that went down, but just not a thing you want to see, not a thing that's representative of other players in the system. And he'll go live his life not in baseball now. And that's the last we need to think about Brett Netzer, I think is how I would put it. All right. And now time for one of my favorite parts of the show, other than when I make some kind of reference that Ian doesn't get, is your emails. Again, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. Hit us up with your thoughts, questions, concerns, feelings, things you want to know about. We got a nice list of questions this week. So here we go. Our first email comes from Harrison, who has some Rule 5 questions, Ian. He says, first, am I right in thinking that the MLB front office maintains a list of every team's 40-man roster as of the November deadline date, and that they make that master list available to all teams before the draft is held? Harrison, actually, what gets said, there is a list of the Rule 5 eligible players. It's not even teams' 40-man rosters. It's the list of players who are eligible for selection in the Rule 5 draft. So that teams build off of that, basically. So that's what gets circulated. His second question, does MLB also provide info on each team's players who are eligible and unprotected, or is coming up with that info entirely on each team's front office? Just told you that one. 3, at what point in 2022 does it become unnecessary or too late to hold a Rule 5 draft? Do you think it has to be held before the official start, regular or delayed, of a season just because of the desirability of starting the season with a full 40? Ian, it has to happen before the season because the point of the Rule 5 draft is you have to keep the guy on your roster the entire year.
Yeah, that I think is the big.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, well, no, but I think it's also a problem though that, like once, and this is why we should mention the Kylie McDaniel report, which I've talked to some scouts also who have echoed the same thing, that a lot of teams are keeping scouts away, are basically not allowing scouts into their facilities for minor league spring training. And part of the main reason is they don't want people putting eyes on the Rule 5 eligible prospects in case there is a Rule 5 draft. Now, that is very unclear. And I think like Kevin Goldstein from Fangraphs has said it, and I've heard the same thing that from people I'm talking to, that it's not a lock that it happens. There's a very real chance it gets completely canceled. But until that is official either way, it makes sense that teams don't want people scouting their players because they should have had to draft them based on the information coming out of the fall last year. Now, potentially they're going to have a whole off season where we've seen what can change in an off season with players, Jaren Durant, like think of Brandon Walter, like just think about the pitchers, like pitchers, hitters, doesn't matter. They can have drastically changed outlooks based on the off season and the work they put in. And now teams are going to get to see that coming into the Rule 5 draft. And if I had to guess now, obviously I don't think it's going to happen for that reason, that A, the shortened season would make it easier to stash the guys, but B, like, it's just not fair on the teams that to potentially have them, especially if it goes in the regular season when they can't, scouts can't be banned from minor league games. So they're going to be able to go to the games once the season starts. If it's still up in the air, then, you can't hide guys anymore. I don't.
But what makes you say scouts can't be game? Oh, like regular minor league.
Once games. Minor league regular season games happen, scouts are allowed to that. Like So like they can keep them out of camp, but they can't keep them away from those games. So once that happens, like, I just don't see how you can have a major league Rule 5 draft.
So his
with
last
all
question,
this additional information.
His last question, your prediction, please. How many Rule 5 drafts will be held in the calendar year of 2022? 1 or 2?
I think only one.
You think only the one?
I don't think this year's is going to happen.
I think the longer the lockout goes, the less likely it is. I think if they get something done,
I would say it would have to be in the next like 3 or 4, like next.
I think
like,
if it's before the minor league season starts.
I don't think you can do that though after having like all of minor league spring training. I don't know. Maybe. I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
I think if you get into the minor league season starting at that point, it becomes unlikely.
Well, but the thing is, like, I just don't know how it would work with a delayed season, because if you delay that, let's say they make an agreement on
same way it worked in 2020.
Short, yeah, I guess so. You just prorate it, yeah.
It just if the guy stays on the team all year, then he's good.
Yeah. So I think though that I personally don't think it's going to happen.
Yep.
If I had to guess right now,
I get it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's
honestly,
it's a big question mark.
And I honestly don't think either side has really thought about the Rule 5 draft. That strikes me as something that we have an agreement. Oh yeah, we need to figure this out. What are we doing? Kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the last thing they're going to figure out when they're negotiating. It's not a priority topic right now.
Our next question comes from Gregory, and he says, hello, a little far afield from the knockout negotiations, but do we have a solid timeline for the high minors pitchers who had Tommy John surgery recently, specifically Thad Ward and Brian Mata? Any updates on those two? Any chance either makes a bullpen debut in the majors late this season? I know the two of you had a lengthy discussion last podcast about the lack of depth in the system, and it seems to my untrained eye that one of the consequences of that is not having reliable arms to channel from the minors over the course of a season. Thanks for the response and for a great pod. Thanks for the email, Gregory. A few things to unpack in there, Ian, but let's start with the beginning question. Ward and Mata. Mata had Tommy John last March.
April.
I believe it was April. Thank you. I think it was early April. Yeah, I mean, Mata, who we apparently forgot to talk about Mata in the earlier.
I mean, we did forget to talk about him.
Oh, did I say we didn't forget? I mean, we did forget.
Well, no, you said apparently we forgot. Well, yeah we forgot.
We literally did.
We did forget.
Apparently the sky is blue.
And I'm blaming our roster page because he's hidden at the bottom.
Yes, that's true. Mata, I mean, 10.
Oh yeah. I mean, he
Easy
literally
10.
He can't work with the doctors or
he can't rehab with the team.
rehab. Like that's a huge deal. No,
big deal.
He's on his own for rehab as long as, I mean, and I assume, yeah, he's on his own for his rehab, and he will be as long as this goes on. And that's a problem, especially when he's coming up on a year where he's supposed to be like ramping up now. Like, there's a program, like I'm sure they gave him instruction prior to the lockout, but they can't monitor if he's following it. Like he can't check in with them with benchmarks or, what he's, what is he hitting goals? Like, what is he looking like? Like, we don't have any of that stuff. They're going to, if he was coming back, they'd be using those slow motion cameras and all that stuff to like, look at his delivery, see if anything's changed, all that stuff. Like none of that's, he probably doesn't have access to those sort of like technology. Like it's a very big deal for him.
Here's a thought. Surgery. The longer the lockout goes, does it make it more likely he gets pushed into the bullpen?
I mean, there's definitely a chance. Yeah.
This year, at least,
it'll be hard for him to ramp up. Like,
yeah, it's going to be really hard for him to ramp up. But who knows? I mean, maybe he rehabs just fine on his own and doesn't miss a beat, I guess, is the devil's advocate point. Right. I mean,
well, of course. I mean, there's always like, we just don't know, but it's just in terms of the information we know on what he's missing out on. Yeah. He's missing out on more than any other person in terms of like,
agreed.
Physical therapists, doctors, everything.
I mean, as far as timeline, it's 12 to 18 months. I mean, he's supposed to be back this year at some point.
Like I wouldn't expect to see him in games, even if let's say, assuming season, starts normally or what actually it doesn't matter for him. I was to say like August. After the trade deadline,
and that's in the complex.
Yeah, like he would be like the Groom path where he pitches in the or what is it called now, the FCL, the FCL for a few games, gets up to maybe like Salem or Greenville for a few, and maybe makes like one start in Portland or Pawtucket at the end of the year. But I don't see him like and then maybe they send him to the fall league if things are going well. But yeah,
well, and actually, if you look at Thad Ward, he got cut. He got the surgery. That's what I mean by got cut. In May, I believe it was
June 3rd.
God, thank you for having the page up. That's closer in time, I think, to when Groom got his surgery. I'm fairly certain. And granted, all rehabs go differently. I mean, Ward is throwing He has posted on social media that he's throwing, but again, he's very end of year.
Groom had his in May, which is the same, and
I think it was mid-May though.
It just says May in here,
Yeah,
but
I think it was midway.
But he returned
right.
in August, and he returned in the end of August.
Yeah.
So with Mata had his in April. So maybe you're looking at like
July,
maybe late July, early August.
Yeah.
Siebold had his in June. So I don't think we see Siebold this year. Probably, or not Siebold. Excuse me. Ward.
I was going to say, what did I miss? Yeah.
Ward.
Well, I think
I would say at most we see him for like
year.
1 or 2 starts, or appearances. I don't think we see him though, like for any considerable amount of time.
And I mean, as far as the depth in the system, I mean, I don't know that I agree that they don't have reliable arms to channel from the minors. You've got 3 guys we mentioned, who could be coming up and ready to go that are, once they come out of the lockout.
Well, I just think we don't know what they are though. Like all of them have questions they need to answer.
Right. But what's a reliable arm who you're stashing in AAA? Like, yes, it's nice when you're the Rays and you can stash Shane Bass.
Or like the Dodgers, they have like Andre Jackson and like Tony Gonsolin, and like the minors are their bullpen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, the Red Sox have like.
I think that's the point, is that it's how can Whitlock are their depth guys?
Right. They're in the majors.
These other guys are like, if they're having to turn to them in April, something's gone seriously wrong.
Yep, I think that's right. Our next question comes from Scott. He says, hello, let me start by saying I really enjoy the podcast and that I'm 100% pro player. I'm not writing this to piss anyone off, but rather as a means for discussion and partly out of my ignorance. I've listened to several discussions about how $500 to $600K salaries for minor leaguers is ridiculous. And I can't help but coming back to a lingering analogy in my mind. That is comparing minor league players to college students. Both have worked their butts off their whole lives to get drafted in the first round, go to the best college possible, so they can make it to the majors and get paid millions, go on to get the best job with the highest paid salary. Both may quote graduate, but this doesn't guarantee success. Finally, both have to sacrifice things like eating top ramen and having multiple roommates. If college students have to take out thousands of dollars in loans to learn/accomplish their goals, why is it that minor leaguers getting paid $500 to $600K to do so is unfair? Please help to see the difference or my flawed logic. Well, let me start here, Scott.
Minor leaguers are not making $500 to $600K.
No, minor leaguers are making $20K. If that.
There was one minor leaguer posted his like tax, like his HR block thing, and he
W2 with, or is it a W2 or is it a 1099?
I think it's a W2.
I think it's a W2.
He made, I think it was $11,000 last year.
Yeah,
playing baseball, which is not problem. Like he's losing money. Like when you factor in rent and taxes and everything, that's before taxes. He made like $11,000.
Yeah,
like these guys are not making $400 or $500K.
Well, yeah, and there's that piece of it. The other piece of with the analogy, I don't think the analogy is apt, and here's why. I get why that comes to mind, right? But when you are a baseball player, you are an employee of the team. You jump when the team tells you to jump. You go where the team tells you to go.
Yeah, I think a better example. Yeah, go ahead.
So let me just finish.
Yeah.
You don't get to transfer teams because you feel like going to a different team. You don't get to say, you know what, I'm going to take this half of a season off, this semester off to go do, something to go study abroad in another country. You don't get to change like, hey, you know what, team, I want to hit now. I don't want to pitch anymore. I want to hit. You have much more freedom as a college student and control over your education and what you're going to learn. Yes, you're paying the college to teach you these things, but the college isn't necessarily like benefiting from you at that point. The way the team is like, put it this way, the college can't trade you to another college, right? The college can't tell you where to go and what to do. You could just leave and go to a different college. That's not true. And granted, yes, you have to get into a college, but I don't think the analogy that just the level of control, the level of, again, it's employment versus education. Yes. For example, I'm a lawyer. I have to do a certain number of CLE hours every year to stay barred in Virginia, right? Like that's education I have to do, but like I have control over the education.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. I think a better example would be that if coming out of college, your chosen profession, let's say it's a lawyer, you didn't get to choose where you went to work. They chose you. And then you made, intern salary for 3 to 4 years or 4 to 5 years before you ever made significant money.
Right.
Like, and it could be a lawyer, it could be whatever, like a consultant, like whatever, it doesn't matter. But let's say like with like, if you wanted to be a lawyer, like imagine you go to law school, you finish law school, and you don't get to pick what state you work in. You don't get to pick where you go. It's told, you get your letter and you say, congratulations, report to Reno, Nevada. That's where you're going.
Which, if I could be fair,
what? Yeah.
If I could be fair, it's not all that much different than how doctors work.
Yeah, no, that's actually, it's a very good, because because basically if you're a doctor, you have to go, you have a residency.
There's a match system.
You have to residency after grad school, you get matched to a place and you have to go there for 5 years and you make no money. That's actually that's probably the best comparison there is. That's actually a real world.
And guess what? They should make a lot more money too.
They very much should, except our hospital system is built upon, minimum wage labor.
That's a whole thing.
But no, that is the best example. That is the most real world comparison is that. And and that's an unfair system also.
Yeah, so, exactly. That's the problem. And I mean, look, here's the other thing it boils down to. As a baseball fan, I want to see the best possible talent play Major League Baseball. What I do not want to see is people turned off of the idea of baseball after 2 years in the minors because it sucks. Granted, it's rare you get Daniel Nava, but Daniel Nava happens. Right? Like it happens. And it could be very easy for the next Daniel Nava to play for 2 years and say, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah. And that's the thing I want to see. And the other thing is,
that blows my mind. Another transaction, but
it's just, you think about it, you look at it like, you have an asset and let's be honest, like teams view the prospects, their assets.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wouldn't you want your asset to be given every possible chance to succeed? Like
exactly.
Why would you want to set up a system where they can't properly nutrition or give themselves the proper, nutritional daily intake? Why would you set up a system where they have to like drive Ubers in the off season? Like
Josh Hawkins did last year.
Right. Exactly. There was, I can't remember, some minor leaguer posted it. Oh no, it was actually someone on the 40 man who posted their Uber rating. It was some Padres guy who got added.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's like, I've made like $5,000 in my minor league career. Like I'm literally an Uber driver right now.
Yeah.
Because someone clapped at him and was like, well, you're a major leaguer sitting back on your salary. Who cares if you play or not? And he was like, here's my Uber rating. I literally have no money. Like,
well, and
that's the thing that's always is like, you don't know. And we've seen transformations like Brandon Walter is a great example. Like you don't know which player is going to be, you can't say that this player was a high draft pick. He's who I'm going to care about. Like those guys, yes, they have money. If you're a high draft pick, they can bust just as right. And I think it was, Kevin Goldstein had a really interesting article in Fangraphs talking about like the bust rate of players. Mm-hmm. And it was like, he was taking Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, and the odds of like both of them turning into like all-stars is something like 5%.
Yeah.
Which if you think, and they're two of the top 5 prospects in baseball.
Yep.
Like there's the player development is not linear. You don't know year in and year out who's going to be the best guy. I mean, we can project, but guys come out of nowhere all the time. And if we're stopping that, if a team or whatever, the system we have that's currently instituted is hindering players' ability to do that and to become like their best possible player, like that seems like it's backward and not what you want to do, when the ROI on these guys is so high that if you have a player who can come up and you have them on 6 years on the minimum salary, that is so advantageous to your team. Right. And like I just don't get why you wouldn't want to be doing everything possible to make sure as many of those players as possible reach their potential.
Well, and that's why I didn't love but could buy the minor league contraction plan a little bit.
Yeah.
If you wanted to tell me there was one roster's worth of players in each system that probably shouldn't have been playing Major League Baseball.
No, you mean minor league baseball.
Minor league baseball. Sorry, Thank you. I could buy that long as that money then gets put into the rest of the players who are left.
Exactly.
In maximizing the return on those investments, which is not what has happened yet.
No.
I think it is trending that way with the teams committing to provide them with lodging now.
Well, and the thing that I think
is going to be player pay, but it needs to continue.
I think the thing that's going to have to happen is some team is just going to have to be like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. But that's the thing that's going to happen is some owner, and it's going to be one of the big teams, is just going to have to be like, I don't care.
Steve Cohen.
Probably. But it's got to be someone at some point. I just don't get why one owner is just like, because at the end of the day, $10 million or whatever, and like that's all. It wouldn't take as much as you think to like properly
it's not even
fund.
10 million.
No, it's like 5 million or whatever. Like, but I'm saying like
it's like one or two. It's two.
But I'm saying let's say you did $5 million to your devoted $5 million specifically to your minor leagues to improve player pay. You paid for housing, you improve nutrition, like improve travel. Like that is such an advantage. And the main reason it's not happening right now is because there are a bunch of teams that don't want to pay it, and they basically it's like a race. It's a race to the bottom. It's if this is the minimum that we can do, we will make sure that all the other teams cannot greatly exceed us and pass us in that regard, because we don't want to spend. And that's again what frustrates me about like the current system is like there is incentive to be minimalist be the lowest possible, like clear the lowest possible bar, because the way the system is set up, the other owners are just going to fall in line behind that. And I just don't get why one of them just isn't like, no, like I'm going to do this.
Right. And so I mean, that part sucks. I mean, look, they don't need to be making 500K. Just pay them 30K, even 30K. I'd be cool with 40. Like it doesn't need to be a ton of money. It needs
just
to
pay them a living wage.
It needs to be above the poverty line.
Like I just want them to be able to let
me put it this way, just to use my profession again, right? Lawyers make a lot of money coming out of law school, in part because they have specialized skills and education that make their work valuable, right? But it's also in part because there are parts of being a lawyer that suck. I've gotten work emails while we're recording this podcast. You know what I mean? That I'm going to have to deal with when we finish this episode. You know what I mean? And part of that is there's parts of the job that aren't fun, but they incentivize you in part with pay, right? And in some jobs, especially at the larger law firms, the ones where you have to bill 2,300 hours a year and you have no life. That's how you make up for it. With baseball, I want them to have players deal with the life of a minor league baseball player in part by getting paid a living wage. I don't think that's asking a whole lot out of owners to get the best possible talent into the game. I mean, it's logical. It's bonkers. They haven't gone there yet, but it looks like it's going in the right direction. Our next question comes from Nick. He says, "Hey guys, the start of the college baseball season has me thinking about how this year's MLB draft will play out. This isn't necessarily a Red Sox specific question, but where do you see Kumar Rocker landing in the draft this year? Do you see him staying at around the same spot or sliding due to not playing collegiately this year and his alleged poor physical from last year? Thanks as always." Ian, I think it's just too early to tell.
Yeah. I mean, I know like I think Baseball America put a mock draft out and they had him in the 20s. But I would guess he's not going to go as high as he did last time, but you never
definitely
know.
Not.
I would guess he doesn't, but yeah, you don't know. Like
he would have
impossible.
To play for an indie league team
and show he's completely healthy and give his full medicals
and have a full medical where he's got a clean bill of health.
Yeah,
to go where he did. To even go where he did.
Speaking of college baseball, by the way, did you see Judd Fabian's bat flip this weekend?
Yes, that was pretty tremendous.
That had some anger behind it.
By the way, a player who, based on everything we've heard, will not be getting redrafted by the Red Sox.
He will not be giving permission to get drafted by the Red Sox, it seems like.
No. His family is not happy.
No, they're not pleased.
Yeah.
No, I'd say definitely
on the internet about it
on college baseball, it's fun. Like this dude on like NC State is just homering.
Tommy Tanks.
Yeah.
Tommy White.
Like, there's just a lot of fun stuff going on in the college baseball world. They're like even high school baseball. Like there's like the clip of Drew Jones last night, he's Andrew Jones' son, which makes me feel so old.
I know.
But where like the entire crowd is, or like the other team is chanting overrated him, and he gets like a fastball up and it hits it like 9 million feet to center field. Like, and just by the way, you want to talk about a guy who looks good in a baseball uniform and looks like a baseball player? Yeah, it makes sense that he's won one on all these draft boards for next year. Like, my God,
and he's got his father to tell him what to do and what not to do, because that's a guy who poor conditioning himself out of the game. In Andrew Jones,
but also knows can teach him how to play center field better than like anyone in the league.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I'd
Hall
say,
of Famer?
Just like Andrew Jones.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I think he's borderline.
He's
really
like
have
right
to
on the edge.
He's right on the borderline.
I have strong feelings that
that's how I feel about him too.
That Scott Rowland should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think Scott Rowland is a better player than Andrew Jones. So that's kind of how I would go.
I think he's going to get it this year.
But no, I would say just kind of as a wrap up with that, just like, if you're worried about baseball right now, support college baseball, support, go to your like local high school team. If, go check out stuff like that. Like there's other baseball on right now. That's a lot of fun to watch. And I've been really enjoying, catching college baseball when I can. And obviously I'm very excited for the minor league season when that gets going. I'll be going there as much as I can, but yeah, like
use it to make new friends.
There's other baseball to watch right now.
Yeah. I mean, I've met people from who post on our forum at games. I was messaging with Jordan from Cespedes Family Barbecue this week because apparently he lives in DC because he was posting photos of him going to games at Catholic University, which is right around the corner for me. And I was like, yo, next time you're at Catholic, I could probably walk. I don't know if I could walk there, but
they have good players on Catholic.
I have no idea. It's D3. Probably not good.
Probably not. But yeah, go watch a D3 baseball game. It's probably free to go to.
Because what I want to do is bring my dog and see if she freaks out, and then if she freaks out, I just leave.
You should bring her to bark at the park at like one of the affiliates this year. That'd be
fantastic. I desperately want to go to Bowie with her.
Because I remember I was at Salem when they had dogs last year, and it was so funny. Some of them were just like, this is the boringest thing I've ever seen. It's way too hot. I'm gonna sit under the seat and sleep all day. Another one was like literally sitting in the seat, like eyes trained on the ball the entire game. Like it was like a human, like sitting up, like feet on the ground, paws like this, ready. You can't see it, but like paws out, ready to jump at the ball if it came towards her. Another one was like freaking out whenever the ball hit the screen right behind on a foul ball because it was like coming toward. Oh, it was great. It was highly entertaining.
For those who don't know, I have a Chihuahua Papillon mix, or at least we think that's what she is. Anyway, yeah, she gets very nervous when people make eye contact, particularly men. So I don't know how she'll do at a baseball game, but I desperately want to bring her, and I really hope she likes it because she had one of her favorite toys is a Greenville Drive toy, believe it or not. So
shout out Greenville Drive. Opening days coming up. 36 days, I believe they tweeted out. Looking forward to getting down there. Might have to go down in April if the major league season is delayed because it's going to be cold here.
Speaking of announcements, by the way, did you see? I think I put it in the Slack. The Portland Sea Dogs announced one of their alternate jerseys this year.
I did. I'm a little confused by it.
The Bean I have to admit. Suppa, SUPPAH.
I don't get it.
It's for a team whose alternates generally can't miss. As a person who owns both a Maine Whoopie Pies cap and a Los Alces de Maine.
I don't get what the bean thing is with Maine. I feel like beans is like a Boston thing.
Yeah.
That's what is confusing to me.
It's like I don't know what that is. Like
the logo is interesting also. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily see what you did, but the second you pointed it out, I was like, yep. Yeah. And I'm sure y'all can extrapolate. Anyway, our next question comes from Ted, and he says, "Hi, Ian and Chris. Love the show." He said Ian and Chris, by the way.
Yeah, smart man. He put me first. Yeah, smart.
Love the show.
He recognizes the talent.
Yes. He says, "Whatever happened to Anderson Espinoza and Casey Kelly? They were two of my Sox hopefuls that were traded to San Diego." Thanks for the email, Ted. Casey Kelly.
Never really he's good though.
He's in Korea now.
He's making like good money there.
Yep. I think he was a Tommy John guy and never really kind of came back.
Yeah.
Until he went to Korea. And speaking of Tommy John guys, Anderson Espinoza has had it twice plus a shoulder injury. Like he's
with the Cubs now. He got traded this offseason, I think.
I thought it was the deadline, actually.
Was it the deadline? He got traded recently. I know that. It might have been the deadline, but he's on the Cubs now, I believe.
He is. And he's basically a bullpen guy at this point at best. Awful long road to hoe to come back. He basically didn't pitch for 3 years? 4
years. I mean, and I think those are two like good examples of why you need to have as much pitching depth as possible because pitching arms, and I think we talk a lot about this in the reports, is like at the end of the day, you can nail a projection you think, but anyone can get hurt at any time, and can completely drastically change the outlook.
Yeah, he didn't pitch between 2016 and 2021 because remember COVID as well. Right. So 17, 18, 19, 20, he missed 4 years.
4 years. And like Anderson Espinoza, I saw him in Greenville. And when we were pitching Greenville, when was that?
2015 for one game.
2015?
Oh, and then 2016 was probably when you saw him.
I saw him in 2016.
Yeah.
It was one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen out of a pitching prospect. He was like 98 to like 100 with like a 70 curveball. It was disgusting. Mm-hmm. And then he just, I mean,
the problem, so he started this year, but in 20, he started 20 games. He pitched 58 innings, 80 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Which I did not realize.
And wasn't he 17 at the time or 18?
No, now I'm saying it.
Oh,
it
now,
aged,
no,
that
no,
was
got
this
you.
past year.
Oh, this past year. Okay, sorry, I
In
thought you were going back
58
to.
innings, he struck out 80 guys.
So he
The
still got
problem
the stuff.
the problem is he walked 32,
Yeah. And that's the thing, command. You never know what's going to happen
and he
when
gave up
when they come
50
back.
hits. So,
Yeah.
and the thing too, it's actually kind of interesting. So with the Padres in high A, he had pitched through 28 innings, 590 or 502 ERA, 37 Ks, gets traded to the Cubs, makes 5 starts in high A, 16 innings, 27 strikeouts, so better K rate, but walked 11. But then he went up to double A for 3 starts, and in 13 innings, he struck out 16, walked 8, but he like only gave up 2 runs. So maybe that's just a small sample size noise thing, but whip's pretty high. He's a bullpen guy at this point. I mean, they're starting him because make sure he gets the reps, but yeah. And I think, do we have one more question? That might be our last question. If this would work, it would be great. Oh, no, one more question. Maybe a couple more questions. This question is from Austin. He says, "Hey guys, thought this would be a fun question in the middle of the lockout. Maybe you answered this before, but how did you, both Chris and Ian, get involved with Sox prospects, and when did you realize that you had a knack for baseball scouting and evaluation?" I've put mine out there a little bit, Ian. You're smiling because you know where I'm going to go with this, that I have no knack for baseball scouting and evaluation. Is that why you're
Oh
smirking
no, that
at
wasn't
me?
what I was going to say. But go ahead.
Oh, why? Why are you smirking? This is why
No,
people
because
don't think
I
we
was
like each other.
reminiscing about how I got started.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I know why you're smirking.
I think mine's
Okay.
funny. So
Yours is pretty fun. Okay, so mine real quick. I found the website because I had MVP baseball. I don't know if it was 04 or 05, but it was one of the first games to feature real minor league teams. There were games before that had minor league players, like you had like a 10-man farm system or something. But this was one of the first ones that had teams, and it had random players because they weren't in the union, but you could edit them to be whoever you wanted them to be. And I wanted to edit all the Red Sox minor leaguers because this was before MLB The Show, when you could just download all the rosters by some crazy person who would do the whole thing.
yeah, this was like what, MVP like 04
05
or something.
04
05,
05, yeah.
The one with Manny on the cover.
Yes. Manny was 05, I believe.
Pujols was the other one, I think.
Pujols was, that's correct. Good pull.
I played those games way too much as a kid, so I know.
Tremendous games.
But I was a kid at that. I wasn't like you being old. It was an old joke.
You had to go there. It's not fun turning 38. Anyway, but yeah, so I Googled around for information on the players in the Red Sox system, found this website, thought it was great. It was Sox Prospects in one of its very early iterations, and emailed the email address that was there for the site just to say how much I loved the site. And for whatever reason, I signed at Chris Hatfield's Salem, New Hampshire, which, like, who does that on an email? It's like, I don't know.
Very good. Giving out all your personal information at first touch.
Yeah, and I threw my social security number at the bottom too, just to be safe. But turns out that Mike Andrews, who started the site, grew up like 2 miles from my house in Salem as well. So we kind of got to talking. I joined the message board because he BS'd me into thinking that it was really good, because at the time it definitely wasn't. Started, moderating the board, and then we added a news page on the website right around when I was trying to get into sports journalism. So I started writing for our news page, figuring that was a great way to get reps to, potentially get some press passes, access to games. I was also interning at the Eagle Tribune at the time in North Andover. So I would go to Lowell. I got them to let me go down to Pawtucket once, and it kind of grew from there. So that's why I always say I kind of come at it with more of a journalistic perspective than necessarily a scout perspective. But that's where I come from. So Ian, what about yours?
I was interning. Well, I followed the site. I discovered it, I don't know, probably when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just lurked maybe, and on the message board, didn't really ever post anything. And then I was interning in DC after college 1 year, probably was my sophomore year, I think, for a government agency. And I quickly learned that going out when you're not 21 in DC is not doable. And so I needed something to do on, nights and weekends when I was home from work. And I basically emailed the site and was like, hey, I can drive to Frederick, Maryland. and go see the Frederick Keys play this. Was at the Salem Red Sox at the time, high A ball.
Yes.
Do you need any information? Was what I said. And I bought my own ticket behind the plate. And I just started going to games out in Frederick. And basically, I think Mike responded. He was like, yes, we need photos for like Oscar Tejeda, Engel Beltran, a few other people. And I went to the park. I had no idea what I was doing. And I asked the players if they would take photos. So there's like an Oscar Tejeda photo where he's like pointing with like a bat in his hand, like looking at me, like smiling. Cause he's like, oh, someone knew who I was. Like, this is kind of awesome. And I'm going to see if it's still on the site. It was his player page photo for many years.
I'll pull it up because I'll be able, it's probably not still there, but it might be in like archive.org.
But anyway, so I did that. And then I got a seat behind home plate. Cause like I played baseball growing up and I was like, I'll just watch the game and, take some notes. And I got a seat right behind home plate and basically just started watching and piggybacking off some scout's radar gun, and was just writing down velo. It's based on just I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. And thankfully there was a very nice scout there who basically just kind of like took me under his wing, and I would just run into him a bunch that summer, and we would just talk shop, and he would kind of just like show me, like point things out to me. We would talk through players, and we kind of just started talking, and he kind of like helped me, learn a lot of stuff. This is my first time really going to games, sitting behind home plate. And I would just kind of send in reports to the site. And it is still there. Yep. That's the photo. It is on his player page still. But I would basically just started like sending in like notes to the site with Chris Mellon at the time, and he would use them to like update player pages and stuff. And kind of just in the off season, you guys posted a like a scouting based position, and it was supposed to be like an editor of like scouting reports or something. And I was like, whatever, I'll just apply to it. And I got the job. And then quickly you guys were like, no, you don't have to do this. Actually, you can just go to games. And I was like, thank you. I don't really want to do this anyway.
Awesome.
But so that was kind of how it went.
Nice. Yeah, so that's our story. Thanks for the question. We have one more question, Ian, and it's from our friend Harrison.
I can't believe that picture's still there, by the way.
I know. Well, I think we just never got another one.
Oh, what a great picture.
It's tremendous. Well, that's the other reason why. So we got another email from Harrison. He says, hello, Ian and Chris. I was reading a chat among prospect experts talking about their top 100 lists. And on the subject of Jeter Downs, who is no longer on the list, came up fleetingly. One expert said about Downs that he knew all along that, quote, that swing would never work, end quote. Although I have the quote below here and that's not quite right.
I think that's the quote, because I think they said they should.
I've got the quote here.
Yeah.
And that was the only word on the
subject
about. Before they moved on. I mean, I'm going to say it. I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Do you know what he was referring to? Is there a consensus or at least a line of thought in the industry that Downs' swing needs to be fixed in a particular way, or was the speaker just being glib? We'll go ahead and say it just because I don't want to like seem like we're subtweeting, or I guess it's not subtweeting if you're talking, but it was Eric Longenhagen of Fangraphs who said, and this was the quote, because someone asked about how far off the list are guys like Bleday and Downs now and what happened. And Eric said, we never should have been on Downs. That bat path doesn't work. I don't know how it worked until AAA and then suddenly stopped working, but I thought it was weird when he was a prospect and weighed his performance more than my subjective concern. Interesting thought, Ian. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely concerns. Like we saw it last year. He couldn't hit AAA pitching, and his swing, he cannot get in anything up in the zone. He couldn't get velocity. And I don't know if it was in that chat, they compared it to Carter Keyboom.
I think it might've been elsewhere.
But it wasn't. Basically, so Carter Keyboom has similar issues. He's with the Nationals. Yeah. And he was a consensus like high top 100 prospect, I think he was like a top 50 prospect at some point.
I think he was higher. He was like a top 20.
Was he top 20?
Yeah.
And he's got up 30. He can't hit major league pitching. And it's the same thing. It's a bat path issue. And yeah, I mean, having seen Downs last year and seeing how he was pitched to and kind of what he did, there's definitely concerns there. And that's why when we were talking about him earlier, I said, I'm interested to see if he underwent a swing change or something, because like what he was doing last year is not going to work. Like if that's the guy he is, then yeah, like they would be right to be off him now. And so, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see kind of what happens with that when the season gets going, or when he's able to play again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's necessarily a consensus out there that I had heard of before this, to answer part of the question too, Ian, that like
No, I don't
he
think it
has a
was a
bad
consensus
path issue.
before. And
Yeah.
and like
It's
you
an
got to
interesting
remember,
thought.
and Downs with us is a tricky one because we didn't see him until this year. 2021
Yeah.
was the
That's
first.
the other problem.
So it's like with certain guys, we have a track record of them. You know, if I've seen guys over 2, 3, 4 years, it's a lot easier to like track changes and kind of know what's going on. But with someone like Downs, you know, he was not only from we only got to see, we missed out the 2020 year and then obviously this year, but he was coming from an affiliate or from from one of the orgs where there's no teams near like the Northeast. So I'm not going to run into any Dodgers prospects or Reds prospects. So whereas like if he was coming from like the Tigers or the Orioles or teams like that, I see those guys all the time already, or the Twins, whatever. But, you know, it's just one of those things where I just we didn't have a lot of experience from him. So we can only kind of go off of what we saw last year. And yeah, you know, it's definitely, well, at first it was off of reports, and there definitely wasn't a consensus because scouts did like him at the time of the trade. And obviously so did other prospect sites. Because I mean, including Fangraphs, because I think they all had him use a consensus, you know, top 100 guy coming into, what was it, 2021, coming in last year.
Coming in 2022. I mean, he's been
so
up there, yeah.
you know, it's kind of something that's cropped up, and I think it's one of those things that might not crop up until you're facing more advanced pitching. You know, you can punish low minors pitching with a bad swing, if that makes sense. If you have certain other like traits, like you have good hand eye, you know, you have a good approach, things like that. But that doesn't necessarily, it might not catch up with you until you reach the high minors.
That sounds right. And it's kind of just to kind of pull one thing that you mentioned there. Thank you all for your emails. Again, it's it's podcast@soxprospects.com if you want to shoot us an email. But to pull one thing out of there that I think is something to keep in mind going forward is that idea of track record. And our track record with pretty much everyone in the system at this point is less than it usually is because we haven't been to spring training for a couple of years.
This is a very good point, actually. They haven't done instructs normally.
We lost 2020. We lost instructs generally for the last 2 years. And last year we were able to see some guys, but it's
they didn't have instructs last year though.
Well, they didn't have instructs, but I'm saying like we saw guys during the year, like you got out to Greenville and Salem. Yes, I got out to 2 games. Like I got screwed by the schedule. I only got 2 games last year. You saw guys in
I saw every level last year
in Portland. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if early on, especially probably coming out of spring training, because we are planning our trip to spring training. It'll be in the range of the 22nd through the 27th. Hopefully we'll all be out there, and do not be surprised. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen if you see a lot of movement coming out of that.
Yeah, and it might not, and it could be, it might not be big movement necessarily coming out of that, but it might be like after a month or two of the minor league season too. It's
I think both.
Yeah,
I mean,
but what I'm thinking is like I might be hesitant to make like big jumps after spring training but it's something like we'll identify like they'll rise up, but then the big jump will come if after a month of either us seeing them or talking to scouts who see them in the regular season, they're like, yeah, this guy's legit. That's when the jump would come to me.
Well, but here's who I'm thinking about as far as like for spring training, like certain guys. So going one direction, if we go and Gilberto Jimenez is still slappy, not doing anything with the ball at the plate, I could see him dropping a bit.
Oh, 100%. But that's different. But I think I was thinking more of guys like Edens and Paulino, for example. Like, we have some sort of track record with him.
I get that.
We've talked to scouts who've seen him. We see him down there. We like what we see. But like, still, I want to see him against like low A pitching. Like he makes Greenville out of the gate. Okay, that's a really good sign. And then we see what he does in that. Like after a month, if he's raking in Greenville, then it's like, okay, rocket ship time. Things like that. Whereas
but the guy I was going to say who could move up quicker, Brandon Walter.
Oh yeah.
Is a guy who, if we go to spring training.
I mean, I saw him last year.
See him.
I saw his worst outing of last year, and you remember, I said I thought he was great. I thought he looked fantastic.
But I could just see if we all go down there and he's mowing down guys who are going to be in Double A this year. Granted, you take it with a grain of salt. It's not just is he mowing them down. It's how does the stuff look?
Yeah,
locating it.
Yeah,
I could see him pushing into the top 10.
Yeah,
after out of camp.
Yeah, and I especially because he was someone I still remember. Like I saw he gave up like 5 home runs in the game I saw, and
you still liked him.
And I was like, well, there were some catcher issues in that game, I'll just say.
Right.
But I was like, this guy's stuff is nasty. Like it is moving all over the place. Like his velo was, I think he was up to like 98. Like stuff just out of nowhere with him. And yeah, that's a good example of someone that like, I think I actually have him high. I think we kind of have a split on him in our like individual rankings.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely someone I could see like pushing top 10 if he looks good in camp.
And then there's the guys who are coming up from the DSL too. I mean, those are a lot of those are dart throws right now. So yeah.
Maybe we'll talk. I think on the next episode, we'll talk more about previewing minor league spring training.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So maybe that's where we will leave it to tantalize you for our next episode. So thank you all for listening. Again, we want to thank you all for downloading. If you could rate and review, we'd appreciate it. Patreon.com is another way you can support the show. And we want to shout out all of our $5 level Patreon supporters. That's Kyle C., Tyler Wooddraw, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Pendle, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Ben NRI, Paul Denyer, Lendl Martin, Cassandra Bukta, James P. McMahon, Stephen Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Aaron Meta, Jeff Harwood, Jimmy Mountain, Brian Cowan, Dusty G, Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Bob Introne, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Keith Fox, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Andrew K, Tim Ware, Michael Murphy, and Kyle Sanborn. Thank you all for your support. You can follow us on Twitter. Follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Follow me at SP Chris Hatfield, and follow the site at Sox Prospects on both Twitter and Instagram. You'll want to follow along because we've got some pretty sweet content up right now. Shout out to Ed Hand and Brian Lombardo, who are doing our SP60 countdown on social media, Facebook as well, facebook.com/Sox Prospects. Really beautiful stuff they're doing it. And shout out to all of our photographers we've gotten photos from, especially, by the way, happy birthday to Kelly O'Connor, who celebrated a birthday recently. She's the main photographer we use at the site, does great work.
Very important behind the scenes person at Sox Prospects. Will not be able to put out the content we do without her.
Huge.
Her photos are, I mean, she's the only one doing it in the system. So
pretty much. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing her again down in Fort Myers, hopefully, because I think she's there when we are. So again, thank you all for listening. We'll be back at you soon. Hopefully we'll have some good news. I think we'll go ahead and preview that spring training trip next episode. So keep an eye out. Thanks all for listening.